Welcome to Scrum Dynamics. Scrum is a great approach for implementing most Microsoft business applications, but it's not the most appropriate approach for every situation. And I often get asked, when should we use Scrum? And when is a different approach a better option? So let's try and answer that question in this video. The Scrum framework is for developing, delivering, and sustaining complex products. Although it has its roots in agile software development, Scrum can be used for managing any complex work with a small team. To determine whether Scrum is an appropriate approach for your Microsoft business application, there are two things we need to consider. The first of these aspects is your Microsoft business application a project or a product? If you're a Microsoft customer anticipating that your business application is something that can be implemented in a couple of weeks or months, then you're treating it like a project. Scrum is still a useful framework for managing a business applications project, but you'll miss out on some of the benefits of Scrum unless you treat your application like a product that continually needs to be updated, enhanced, and supported over a long lifetime. Here you can see a comparison of the effort of managing a business applications project with a spike around month 15 when the application is released into production. And then the effort tails off when the project team hands the system over to support. When you're managing your business app like a product, the level of effort looks more like the blue line. There are 3 bumps in effort when the app is released into production, and the team size slowly diminishes over time. After considering whether you want to run your application as a product or a project, next it's time to consider the complexity. This is a Ralph Stacey complexity model that illustrates 4 types of work: simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic, depending upon how close or how far from agreement the requirements are and how close or far from certainty the technical solution is. Simple work is well defined and easy to solve with well-known technology. A Power App for yourself, your family, or a small team fit into this category. Templated Dynamics 365 Business Central projects also fall into this category. Projects to implement these types of apps don't really justify Scrum. Your project team is likely to be 3 or fewer and take a few days or a few weeks to complete. This type of work benefits from a repeatable set of best practices and is well suited to a waterfall approach. You might benefit from some agile practices such as a Scrum board to track your tasks, but trying to apply all of the Scrum framework is overkill. Complicated work faces a moderate level of unknown requirements and uncertain technology. Power Apps and Dynamics 365 apps for a group or department, a departmental Power BI application, or an app factory developing a large portfolio of Power Apps, or even an ERP upgrade or migration could fall into this category. Complicated apps take a few months for a small team to deploy. This type of work often benefits from an empirical approach like Scrum, where we can learn as we proceed and handle ambiguity and change. Complex work faces unknown or divergent requirements and high degrees of technical uncertainty. Almost all Enterprise Dynamics 365 and any enterprise-wide Power Apps or Power BI deployments fall into this category. Larger Business Central and almost all finance and operations, supply chain, and HR apps do too. Complex apps will often involve 1 or more teams and take many months to deploy, usually in several releases. Scrum is perfectly suited to complex work because of its inspect, adapt, and act approach with frequent increments and seeking feedback from our stakeholders. Work that is beset by extreme levels of requirements ambiguity or technical novelty is chaotic, and projects in this category are best avoided rather than tackled at all. Developing a vaccine in response to a viral pandemic is an example of chaotic work. The Cynefin complexity model is another way of looking at your application and determining its complexity and the approach to use. Using either Stacey or Cynefin models, when should we use Scrum? I recommend you don't use Scrum and choose an alternative approach when you're dealing with simple apps or trying to tame chaos. I recommend Scrum when you're building complicated or complex apps with moderate to high levels of requirement ambiguity or disagreement, and your solution has got uncertainty or lots of unknowns. Let's take a quick look at other factors that teams commonly consider when choosing to use Scrum. Let's start with some adverse factors that might make Scrum a less than ideal approach. An inexperienced Scrum Master. I know some Microsoft partners who've taken a Scrum course and used Scrum on a project without an experienced Scrum Master. They practiced Scrum with a low-risk client on a small, low-risk project, but I still think that's a pretty high-risk decision. Hire a contract Scrum Master if you haven't got one in your team. Fixed scope. Even in 2020, some clients still ask for a fixed scope because they want to shift all the risk onto their systems integrator. But they're unable to fix the scope, and the project dies by 1,000 change requests, and there's rarely a win-win outcome for both the Microsoft customer and partner. Time zone dispersed. Scrum requires close collaboration between the product owner and all the members of the development team. That's almost impossible to achieve when there's more than a couple of hours time difference between any of the team. Upfront analysis and/or design. 50 years of software development has shown that upfront analysis and design is a fallacy. Some regulated industries, such as pharmaceuticals, require design approval by a regulator, but even then, an emergent design is a better option. Stakeholder disengagement. Scrum requires frequent feedback and reviews from your stakeholders. If they insist on upfront workshops and don't want to hear from you again until acceptance testing, then that's a bad omen for Scrum. Actually, it's probably a bad omen for any approach, in fact. Inexperienced customers and/or development teams. I know some Microsoft partners who don't want to pitch Scrum to a customer that they believe prefers the traditional approach or has got no Scrum experience. I have pitched Scrum in lots of situations like this and won those opportunities. Almost every organization today is already on an agile journey and is crying out for someone to lead them on that journey. They need a strong Scrum Master to coach them through their first steps, and so does almost every developer. Time zone co-located but geographically dispersed teams work really well in Scrum. I ran several projects this way in Southern California where no one wanted to commute through the LA traffic. And today I run my Scrum teams this way because even though there's no traffic, we're not allowed to leave the house. Finally, here are the favorable factors affecting Scrum as your implementation approach. Fixed price or fixed time. If your customer has a specific budget or release timeline, then we can plan our sprints up to those constraints. They need to be flexible on the scope, but they're in control of the scope by prioritizing our work every sprint to maximize the value we deliver together. Physically co-located in the same office space is still my personal preference, especially if you're all in the same city. Just-in-time analysis and emergent design can be difficult concepts for some customers, especially old-school architects, to become comfortable with. But it's undeniable that the best time to design a feature is as late as possible in the project, when we've learned as much as we can about the requirement and how to work together successfully as a team. Engaged stakeholders who are frequently available is a hallmark of a successful Scrum project. That means a senior business representative with decision-making authority dedicated to the Scrum team in the product owner role. So that's it for when to use Scrum in a Microsoft Business Applications engagement. I've been Neil Benson. I'm on a mission to help every Microsoft customer and partner use the Scrum framework to successfully implement Microsoft Business Applications. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, smash the thumbs up like button, and get notified when I publish my next video. If you haven't already joined my free Agile Foundations mini course, you can visit customary.com/foundations or click in the link in the description below. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay home, and keep sprinting. Bye for now.